You feeling a little sleepy, Kevin? That was a little bit of a sleepy game in Allen Fieldhouse. Kansas beats Utah at home, and now they're set up for a matchup against Arizona. We'll talk about Utah, preview a little bit of Arizona as well. We'll do all that coming up next. This is the Paid Podcast, a live edition of the show on a Saturday afternoon after Kansas beats Utah in Allen Fieldhouse 71-59. Kansas now on a 7-game win streak as well after this win against Utah, and they will almost certainly now be setting up a top 10 matchup against number 1 Arizona. Arizona, by the way, just tipped off against Oklahoma State as we're live here on YouTube about a few minutes ago. So they're at home against Oklahoma State. I assume Utah's going to win, or I'm assuming Arizona's going to win that game. So presumably you're going to have an undefeated Arizona rolling into Allen Fieldhouse on Monday night. We'll talk about that later on in the show. But Kansas gets the win on Saturday afternoon against Utah, 71-59. And it was very much a ho-hum game for Kansas. Saw some people in the comments. Philip guy came in and said, "Whew, thank God it's over." This is not going to be a game you're going to write home to your kids about, or, in 20 years be like, I remember when Kansas beat Utah at Allen Fieldhouse. No, this is not going to be that game because it was not a pretty game. Dave called it a rough game, but a W is still a W as well. And even look at this. Even Josh calls it was a sleepy game, but they pulled it off onto Arizona. It was a bit of a sleepy game. Then Kansas started out pretty rough in this one. Utah jumped on them early. And then Bill Self called a timeout to get them going a little bit. Kansas then went on a run in the first half, but Utah was still hanging around for the most part, despite the fact that Kevin, you had the stat I think when you tweeted it out. So Utah had 14 points, basically 5 minutes into the first half, and then the rest of for their final 15 minutes they scored 17 points, whatever it was. So a bit of a rough game for them, but that was kind of my takeaway as I was watching it down the stretch. We'll talk about Darren Peterson, we'll talk about Flory Bidunga, all that stuff, but just this was very obviously a C-/D+ game from Kansas, and unfortunately for Utah, they're just bad and not good enough to capitalize. And Kansas was at home, and they get the win.
Yeah, C-D+, but to be fair, Kansas was probably an F or so to start the game.
Yeah,
it was pretty much an F to end the game too. And the funny thing about that is, if that was different, if they had been the C- game throughout, Kansas probably still covers the 18.5 spread. And so it's kind of funny how that works out. Terrific showing from Flory Bidunga, obviously. Then you add in Melvin Council and the way that he was able to attack and get things out in the open floor when the offense wasn't really clicking. Trey White had like one of those games where it was kind of quiet, and then you look up and he actually has, some decent numbers at the end of it. Darren Peterson, kind of was sleepy throughout a little bit. He gets to double figures on was it a floater? Was it a lob? Either way, it was a goaltend play. That was what got him to 10 points. And then, of course, he gets the steal, the dunk, and one that, makes the numbers look a little bit better than they were. But this is also a game in that first half, Nick, where you're out. El Marco, obviously, who didn't play in this one, was listed as a game time decision. Game time decision obviously didn't go his way. He didn't wind up playing. Trey White and Flory were in foul trouble in the first half. Flory sat for pretty much that time. They kept Trey White out there. And then Melvin Council takes a hard fall and has to go back to the locker room before coming back out. And so you really got to see them get into that depth quite a bit. At one point, you have Jaden Dawson and Cole Rosario out there at the same time. To end the half, you have Samis Calderon out there playing defense. And so it was a game that you didn't feel like KU played very well. Obviously, was very sleepy, especially in spurts. But at the same time, it was very much a survive and advance type of feeling in this one. They did enough to win, and they did enough in kind of one of those weird games where some things kind of went against them a little bit to still win by double digits.
Yeah, well, it may have been a C-D+ game for Kansas as a team. My biggest takeaway was that for Flory Bidunga, this was an A+ game. I mean, he was absolutely phenomenal. Utah is going to be having nightmares, I think, about trying to drive into the lane against him for quite a while after this game. I mean, he was absolutely dominant, rejecting balls. I think he finished with 7 blocks in the game. Felt like he had 12, to be honest. I mean, he was absolutely phenomenal.
I tried to follow Flory after the game, and he apparently already had me blocked.
What? That's crazy.
No, I mean, that's a joke.
Oh, okay. That's my bad. You know what? Hand up.
Come on, Nick. Come on.
Whoop.
This is a sleepy show from Nick as well. And I feel like Nick would be all over that on an A+ Nick Springer show. But that was a whoosh moment. He was like, oh man, like Flory really hates you. No, it was a joke about the fact that Flory is blocking everything right now.
That went so far above my head. Oh man, that was poor. That was really bad. And listen, if this was not a live show, I would absolutely be editing this part out. But
all I have are dad jokes, Philip. I'm sorry. That's all I got.
Oh, that was too good. But yes, point taken. Flory Bidunga obviously was blocking everybody. It was doing, and then at the other end, it was Lob City for him. Melvin found him a couple times. You know, the other thing that I absolutely loved, and Kansas ran it a couple times tonight, is Kevin, that action where they did it with Darren Peterson and with Melvin Council, I think too, where it's a pick and roll with Bryson Tiller to the high post, and then it's just an easy lob every time. I mean, I'm watching, I'm like, if this is executed well, like with DP or Melvin and then Tiller rolling to the high post, like, I don't know how you stop that play. Like, it's literally unstoppable if it's executed well.
Yeah, there was another time where they basically ran a little pitch off of that and got a wide open 3. And, you know, I think it was Philip talked about the big takeaway from this game is KU probably won't shoot this poorly again. They had some terrific looks that did not go down. You know, Trey White had some outside shots that you don't want to give up to Trey White if you're an opponent, and he didn't make them. Melvin had a really, really good look or two as well. Obviously, Darren Peterson, I saw the announcer said, man, you're surprised that Darren Peterson misses it when he's that open. It's like, how often have we seen Darren Peterson that open? But he missed the shot. And so I do think the process wasn't necessarily as bad as the offensive output looked. They probably got the shots that they needed or wanted to score 80-plus points in this one. Defensively, they would go through stretches where they played really well, and Flory was the backbone behind a lot of that. But then they would also go through stretches where you're giving up layups, you're giving up open shots, and they just didn't quite seem to have it as much.
Yeah, it was definitely an up and down game. You know, Kansas kind of locked in for a portion of that first half, and then they had that stretch in the second half where, you know, this was a 10-point game still with about 5 minutes left, 4 minutes left in the game. Kansas eventually went on a little bit of a 7-0 run kind of from that point until there was about 2 minutes left in the game to really ultimately put the game away. But yeah, I mean, Utah was still hanging around, I think would be the best way to put it. But yeah, Flory Bidunga was obviously outstanding. He's so efficient. I mean, how can you not be when you're dunking everything? 7 of 8 from the floor, 17 points, 10 rebounds. He was three blocks away from a potential triple double in this game against Utah. He was phenomenal. Bill Self called him the best defender in the country earlier in the week, and I am hard pressed to disagree. I mean, this dude has been on a phenomenal run in terms of what he's doing for Kansas. And
what do you think about the right hand? I don't want to cut you off, but the right hand drive that he had, you know, where he put it on the floor with the right and finished with the right, like that's not something I think we would have seen from him even a month or two ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the defensive side, though, what I was going to say was what more impressed me in this particular game was there were 2 separate occasions where Flory got switched onto the smaller guard for Utah and just absolutely locked him down. Yes. I mean, it was insane. One of them, the guy from Utah, McHenry, I think just chucked it into the backcourt, and it resulted in an open 3-point shot for Trey White. The other one, I think, ended in a lob too. Like it was remarkable to watch him get switched onto a smaller guy and just give up no space, and nobody was even able to get around him. So really going beyond his blocking ability, right? If you just look at that in and of itself, he's automatically, I think, a top 10, top 5 shot blocker in the country. I think he was 6th in the country in blocks per game heading into this game today. If you add in the fact that he can switch onto a small guy and just completely deny a drive, completely, you know, lock him down with his mobility, he's might be the best defender in the country. I think he's certainly the most versatile defender in the country because of that. The fact that he can switch and is so dynamic as a defender and is able to, has shown that he can really, really defend any level of player that's against him.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about in the past, sometimes you get an elite shot blocker, sometimes you get an elite movement big man who can guard several positions, switch. Jeff Withey was the former, right? If it was around the basket, Jeff Withey was blocking or challenging it. KJ Adams, when he played the 5 on that 22-23 team, was the latter. He was somebody that you could switch onto everybody because of how quick he was. Flory, the thing that makes him so special is you get both. He's a guy that can challenge at the rim, can swat shots, and yet he's still athletic enough that he can switch onto a point guard and stay attached. And even when a guy puts it on the floor and tries to get by him, he's going to either challenge that shot or erase it. And he does a terrific job of staying in front of guys as well. And so you don't usually get both of those in the same package where you have the elite shot blocker and the guy that does that. By the way, Nick, you were talking about sleepy effort from Kansas in this one. You win by 12, and Kansas dropped 2 spots in KenPom. So that kind of tells you, the lack of efficiency that they played with compared to maybe what they were supposed to do.
I mean, look, if you're a Utah fan, just cover yours real quick. Those boys are terrible. I mean, they stink. They are just flat out bad. And the sad part is
Kansas, Utah fans watching this show.
And the sad part is Kansas made them look pretty good a couple times. And it's like, these dudes are not good. Like, this is not a good team. They are the worst team in the Big 12. But yeah, so Utah fans, you can uncover yours now. But yes, they are really, really bad.
They're bad at offense, they're bad at defense, and they're bad at everything in between. So yeah, that's why they are where they're at.
Right. A couple of comments here. Dave says Floyd needs Big 12 Defender of the Year. I mean, I would think that he's got to be in that conversation, certainly, with what he's been doing over the course of conference play. Without off the top of my head, I have to think of what other guys maybe might be in that conversation.
Tugler, I would bet.
I was going to say Tugler, probably somebody, obviously KU hasn't seen Houston yet, but he's probably somebody you'd have to keep an eye out for an award like that. But I mean, if he goes out and keeps getting, half a dozen blocks a game over the course of Big 12 play down the stretch, I think he certainly has to be in that conversation. Philip followed that up by saying, Flory got to be a top 20 pick if he could develop a few more post moves. Yeah, the thing with the post moves is, like, I guess compared to last year, I've always felt like Flory has shown, I think he has a lot more post moves this year than he did as a freshman, which I guess isn't really saying much because we never really saw him do much as a freshman. But yeah, I guess on the flip side of this conversation, that's the worry, is that if Flory continues to play at this level, odds are he probably is going to have a chance to get drafted pretty high in the NBA draft and would then obviously not return to Kansas at that point. So
we had Ben Pfeiffer on our show, who's, a terrific NBA draft guy. We had him before the season started. And I asked him here recently, just sort of, hey, where's Flory at on your board as of today? And the way that he basically made it sound was, there is this tier that's basically the end of the first round through a significant portion of the second round. And Flory is kind of in that tier where it's not going to surprise you if he's a first round pick. He's also somebody that could slip into the second round a little bit. He's in kind of that block right now. But obviously, as he continues to play like this, Nick, that stock can change. Somebody can fall in love and he can move up or down accordingly. But I thought that was interesting that he was saying, hey, he tracks in this group of could be a first rounder, but also, a lot of those guys are going to be second round picks.
Good comment here from TJ KFC. Says, what's better than a post game? The ability to dunk everything.
That's true.
Yes, that is true. That is yeah, that is true as well. Yeah, I think with Flory, assuming he plays at this level or near this level for the rest of the season, and maybe Kansas ends up making a fairly nice run in the NCAA tournament, I would assume he's going to be one of those guys where he's going to declare for the draft, and you might be sweating, in May and June until that date where he has to withdraw. Probably, I would suspect that he's going to be a guy that's probably going to want to go through that process just to get that additional feedback. So, you can't guarantee that he would be somebody that's going to be back, but obviously, I mean, if you start to think about 2026, 27, when you have the possibility of a Talon Kenny plus Flory plus Bryson Tiller back, you start to get really excited about next year too, with what Kansas is building. But obviously, you're looking at this year right now and saying you have a chance to. Now, I think we'll get into the discussion about the Arizona game, but if you go 1-1 or 2-0 over your next 2 games between Arizona and Iowa State, you're talking Big 12 regular season title. You're talking, what can you do in the postseason beyond that? So, yeah, I think it's exciting times for Kansas. Obviously today against Utah was not, they did not put their best foot forward. But you got to win these games too and move on to the big one on Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how you win in the NCAA tournament too, right? You're not going to play your best game over the course of 6 games every single time out. You're going to have a C- game, and you're going to have to find a way to win when you have that C- game. There isn't any team that plays just blindingly well over 6 games. And so the ability to win, and in this case, obviously Utah's not an NCAA tournament team, but the ability to win by double digits when, you very much do not have your foot on the pedal is a nice trait to have. And I think we've seen both in this game and the Texas Tech game, Kansas able to kind of scrap and bite it and do what it needed to do at certain times to come out with a win, even when they didn't play super well.
Yeah, and speaking of not playing super well, I wanted to touch a little bit more on Darren Peterson. We haven't really talked about him yet. I want to get into that, some more takeaways from Utah, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into KU and Arizona. We'll do that coming up next.
What's going on, everybody? It is Ben Heisler, KCSN betting analyst. Happy Super Bowl week to all of you. It is Super Bowl 60, and you know by now that it deserves a sports book that is built for the moment. We've been talking about them all season. Been great partners of ours, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 60. It's putting you right in the center of the biggest game of the year. And listen, it's the Super Bowl. We've seen some wild things happen. And when anything can happen, DraftKings has your back with early exit. If a player goes down in the first half, you still get paid out in cash immediately once your bet settles. There's no bonus bets. There's no waiting. It all comes together for you. It's going to be a fun matchup. We got the Patriots and the Seahawks. Seahawks right now at DraftKings Sportsbook, a 4.5-point favorite with the total sitting at 45.5. You want to take the Patriots on the money line, you can do so just under 2-1 odds at plus 190. Me personally, I'm leaning towards that number with the Patriots. Now, in fairness, we've seen this number go all the way up to Patriots plus 5.5. I ended up grabbing them right at the very beginning at plus 4.5, thinking that line might go down. I still think it will. I'm expecting this line to close somewhere around 3.5 to 4. So I think you can still get good value with a lot of that public money likely coming in on the Pats. So I'm on Pats plus 4.5. I think that's the right line here, and I think it's a good opportunity. But remember, here's what you really want to know is that if you are new to DraftKings, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. You can get on board the props. There's different Super Bowl MVPs. If you want to take the quarterback plays or the long shot variety ones, all those are available for you at DraftKings Sportsbook. But here's what you do. You download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Now, use that code KCSN, that is code KCSN, to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states, void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
This is the Paid Podcast, a live edition of the show here on a Saturday afternoon after Kansas beats Utah at Allen Fieldhouse 71-59. I'm Nick Springer here with Kevin Flaherty. We're brought to you by Emprise Bank, your partner in all things possible. By the way, if you are joining us, be sure to do 3 things. Subscribe to the YouTube channel here at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN so you can join us for all of our live shows on YouTube. You can also like the video and share a comment live. Appreciate so many of those of you that have shared a comment with us. Listen, sleepy game for Kansas, even a little bit of a sleepy show for Kevin and I. We're not fully locked in, but the chat here and everybody tuning in on YouTube is always locked in, and we appreciate you so much for joining us today. How about this from Robert? Rocking my Bidunga jersey proudly. How about that? Shout out to Robert. Flory Bidunga obviously was fantastic in this game today. If you're listening on the audio platform as well, you can subscribe wherever you get your audio, Apple, Spotify. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. But hey, like I said, you want to subscribe on YouTube because you'll want to join us for our live shows, including Monday night after KU and Arizona. We'll be live for that one, which is obviously going to be a huge game. We'll talk a little bit about that more later on in the show. Right on cue, Philip has a comment here that I wanted to touch on actually after the break, which is Peterson was Mr. Sleepy. And yeah, Darren Peterson, I'm going to say something, Kevin, and I obviously Darren Peterson's been phenomenal over the course of his time at Kansas when he's played, but today was probably, I think, his worst game in a Kansas jersey where he's played. And that's not a bad thing at all because he's obviously been really good when he has played, but yeah, it just wasn't a great game for him. But even still, despite not being a great game, he has the emphatic dunk where he gets the and one that I think, really energized the crowd and got things going for Kansas in the second half. But yeah, overall, a bit of a tough game for Darren Peterson this afternoon.
Yeah, he just didn't seem to have the level of aggression that he usually plays with. And there's such a fine line, right? Because we've talked about how a lot of times when Peterson is in full-on aggressive mode, the other guys can be seen kind of standing around it and letting him do his thing. And so there's this middle path that you kind of have to walk where Peterson is really aggressive. He's making the defense pay in the way that only he can, but doing it in a way that everybody else, is able to feel involved. Today, it felt like he went a little too far to the other side, to the passive side. And so there were opportunities where it looked like, hey, you've got the ball in your hands. You can maybe try and go make something happen. And he passed it off. I think there were a few other opportunities where he drove it and, just maybe didn't quite have the level of focus or honed in stuff that he usually has. And so I think it says a lot that I think it says a lot about his ability that you're talking about a guy who scored, what was it, 14? Was that what he finished with? 13?
He finished with, 14 points. Yep.
Yeah, a guy finishes with 14 points. You're just like, it was a sleepy effort or whatever. But no, Self said after the game that outside of Flory, everybody was kind of average at best, and I would put him in that discussion as well. Josh has an update on Melvin Council in there. That was what I figured when Melvin was bleeding. If you're bleeding and they take you, off the court, basically, they're usually going to stitch you up. And so it makes sense that Melvin got some stitches there. I thought Melvin was a huge key early on, especially with the way that he attacked, that he put his foot in the ground in transition. And that's something that we've been asking for here for a little while, right, Nick? Is this team, its identity always needs to be on defense. They can't go very far this year if they aren't great defensively. The next step after that is, hey, you got a pretty athletic team. Let's get down the court after getting those stops and generate some opportunities. And Melvin Council used his speed, I thought, today, Nick, to do a nice job to get Kansas some opportunities. You would call it both in transition and what some people call kind of secondary transition or half transition, where it's not really transition, but you're not attacking a fully set defense either.
Well, the play that comes to mind for me when you're talking about Melvin's speed is that play where the Utah offensive player just threw it into the backcourt, and it was basically
after Flory locked the guy up. Yeah,
right. And it was basically, hey, here's a 60-foot, race to get to the ball. Melvin gets there first, ends up finding Trey White, who ends up hitting a three. Right,
where Jaden Dawson.
Oh, right. My apologies. Yes, Jaden Dawson. Sorry, they look similar when with the looks. They look similar. But you're right. It was
slap in the face of my dude.
Yeah, you're right. It was Jaden Dawson. That was a big moment for Trey. That was a big moment for Jaden Dawson too. But yeah, that's the play that immediately jumps to my mind when you talk about the speed of Melvin Council. Okay, here's basically who can get 60 feet down the court quicker. And Melvin Council was there and had the chance to then dish it off to Dawson, who hits a three. And again, a play that I don't know that you would technically qualify it as transition, but it was, right? Because you basically had a 2-on-2 really down the court the other direction. So yeah, 6 stitches from Melvin Council, as Josh pointed out in our chat. He had that play in the first half where he went down pretty hard. I'm assuming must have just landed on his chin, I guess, or however it happened.
I think he might have gotten popped in the face.
Really?
When he went up or.
Okay.
That was, I mean, he fell hard, but I thought that he kind of split it open when he got hit. But yeah, it was either way. It was, he did something that needed 6 stitches, and that's not inconsequential.
Right. And they made that decision quickly on the broadcast. If you're watching the broadcast, he went to the end of the bench and they were immediately like, all right, locker room, and got him patched up. And yeah, he came back. And Dave in the chat says, that's why I love the dude. And yeah, he comes back. So, and he, again, he was very instrumental, and Melvin Council ended up with 11 points, by the way, in the game as well for Kansas. Kevin, I don't know if you noticed this. Kansas only hit 3 threes in the game today.
Yeah.
3 of 18 from 3.
Yeah. And I think they were all early, wasn't it? 3? Didn't they shoot 3 for 9 in the first half?
Yeah, it was Darren Peterson. Darren Peterson hit in the first half, and then you have the Jaden Dawson one we just talked about.
Melvin Council hit
and then
really early.
Yep. Yeah, they were. Yep, you're right. I'm looking at it right now. Kansas was 0 of 9 from 3 in the second half of this game.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough shooting night, and they got the looks they wanted. I mean, Trey White had a couple just wide open looks. Darren Peterson had a huge wide open look, and it's not like this team can't shoot, but you're going to have the odd outing where the shots don't fall, and so I'm not super worried about that part of it. The shots didn't fall, but they still did enough offensively to score enough points to win in this one. I did want to ask you though, Nick, about Jaden Dawson, because he was a guy that came out at the same time as Cole Rosario. Cole Rosario actually wound up going back to the bench before Jaden Dawson. And I actually thought Dawson worked his ass off on defense a few times. And he kind of got rewarded for running down the court with that open 3 that he wound up knocking down. Him making shots is going to be important for him to carve out a bigger role, but him getting on the court in the first place is going to depend on him having that kind of defensive effort like he did today.
Yeah, once it became clear that Marco Jackson wasn't going to play today, you knew probably that you were going to see a little bit more of those guys. And then on top of that, like you mentioned earlier, there was some foul trouble as well that Kansas kind of had to work through in the first half. And so you're right. Cole Rosario got the first crack at it. He was out there, and then he gave up a pretty bad back cut.
Yeah.
And that got him sent back to the bench. But then both him and Jaden Dawson ended up coming back out onto the floor. And like I said, Jaden Dawson, I thought, handled himself well out there. They both ended up playing a total of 6 minutes off the bench for Kansas. And yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about this. In 2023, I think, or 2024, Kansas was in a similar situation where repeatedly over the course of the season, Bill Self talked about how, hey, we have the best starting 5 in the country, but then do we have much beyond that? And that ended up coming back to bite Kansas with the McCullough injury down the stretch, they ended up not playing. So I guess that is all to say, like, are you really worried at all about the fact that, we're sitting here at the end of the first week of February and you don't really have anybody off your bench that you feel like is guaranteed to provide any sort of real scoring punch? I mean, your Bill Self circle of trust that we talked about with the 7 guys, which is your starters plus Jamari McDowell and Elmarco Jackson. Yes, there's a question in the chat just a quick little side question here. Side quest. We're on a side quest here. Random question from Brendan in the chat said, did we sign a guy a year or two ago who's going to at least intended to play basketball and football? Yes, that was Jaden Nickens, who, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin, had a season-ending injury in
I don't know if his injury was but he missed all year with an injury. I don't know if it was like one injury or if it was, hey, he was banged up. But he was on the injury reports for football pretty much all season long as being out. And so, yeah, he didn't play at all this season. He was a true freshman this season. And then remember, with the way that the scholarship situation works now, and the roster situations and everything, I think it would have been tough for basketball to carry him even if he was healthy, at least this year. And so obviously he came here, kind of as, I would say, a football first guy who was going to play basketball as well. But with him missing the whole football season, it wasn't super likely that he was going to play basketball. I will say we've talked about, and this is a basketball episode, but we've talked about in football, they landed 2 transfer wide receivers. Obviously, you have Cam Pickett coming back. You have Keaton Kubeka coming back from the rotation. They're going to need 1 or 2 of those young guys to join that rotation. Tate Nagy is going to be a possibility. And then you hope that Jaden Nickens, if he's healthy, because he is a little bit of a taller guy who, has some athleticism and stuff, that maybe he could be one of those guys that throws hat in the ring. So when we are at spring practice, Nick, we will be keeping an eye out for Jaden Nickens to see if he's starting to make a move on the football field. But no, he's not on the basketball court this year.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think maybe at Big 12 Media Days, Self was actually asked about Nickens
Yeah.
and basically said something along the lines of what you mentioned, which is you got to remember the total number of scholarships for basketball teams is less now than it was even 2-3 years ago. It was reduced to 13. So I think there was probably that calculation into it of saying, okay, you know what, if he's on football scholarship, that's fine. And so, not on the football team or not on the basketball team, I should say, for this season. So yeah. I'm more intrigued by him at wide receiver for the reasons that you outlined, Kevin, which is Kansas is going to need probably some extra depth at wide receiver on the football field in the fall of 2026 as well. So, all right, thank you, Brendan. Also, no need to apologize for the side quest. Listen,
we love side quests.
You know how
that's
many
how you get
quests?
experience, you get better gear, and that's how you eventually beat the boss in the end.
Right. That's how you level up. That's how you get to be over leveled. And then you're like, oh, wow, this game's so easy. And then you play it again. You're like, this is not easy, actually. So, yeah, no need to apologize for side quest, but side quest completed. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Brendan. I don't remember what the hell we were talking about before, Kevin. You'll have to try to remind me.
I think we were you were starting to ask about the bench and how much how worrisome it is basically that you don't have a guy that you can count on for bench scoring. And I think that's a great point because it is worrying. I think El Marco has given you moments when you look at the Tennessee game, when you look at, hey, El Marco's last healthy game, he dropped 19 against K-State. But at the same time, you haven't been able to count on that necessarily. And I think when you watch Jamari McDowell right now, Jamari isn't making some of the shots that he was making a little bit earlier. He's still giving them benefit, right? In terms of Jamari is a complimentary ball handler that can come out there and help you run the offense and engage in a lot of those ways. But with Jamari not scoring right now, you really feel like, man, there needs to be somebody off that bench that's going to be able to generate some points.
And unfortunately, as much as I think with what Cole Rosario gives you from a defensive standpoint, from a physicality standpoint, from just an effort and hustle standpoint, I have a hard time envisioning that scoring light switch flipping on for him at this stage of the season, right? And so now you really are turning to basically either Jamari McDowell or Jaden Dawson, quite frankly, to be somebody that can come off the bench and give you that scoring punch. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know how worrisome it is. I think I saw you might know this better than I do, Kevin. There's when you look at past national champions, most of them don't really necessarily have a lot of bench scoring. I think North Carolina was the last national champion that had like above average bench scoring or bench contribution. So it's not something that's really critical once you get to the NCAA tournament as much because of the fact that, you have longer breaks, right? And then obviously, you have a gap in between each weekend if you're advancing in a tournament. So from the postseason perspective, it's not as important, I don't think. At least that's what sort of past history would tell you when you look at some of the trends of past national champions. But, when you're in the thick of conference play and you're playing 2 games a week, yes, it is something that you feel like could be a hindrance, So something to monitor, I would say, is that bench scoring. All right, we got a question here from Clinton that says, are y'all back on the Natty train? I want to talk about that and preview what I think is directly related to that question, which is, of course, the game against Arizona on Monday. We'll do that coming up next.
I'm Brett Goodwin, one of the owners of The Learning Tree. The Learning Tree is a neighborhood toy store in Prairie Village, Kansas. This has been here in this location since 2000s, and my husband Allen and I purchased the store in 2023. Allen and I grew up in families where we've always wanted to have a business together. Allen grew up, for instance, his parents had a jewelry store. I worked in a local toy store here in Prairie Village when I was growing up. When this opportunity happened in 2023, we knew right away we wanted to contact them and pursue the store. We wouldn't have been able to get the store without the team at Emprise Bank. From the day we contacted them, they knew what we needed to do, which was very helpful. I would absolutely recommend the team at Emprise Bank to anyone looking to secure a business. We worked with Emprise from day one. They were extremely helpful. They were always great resources. We talk to them frequently. They know the area. They're very friendly. We know who we're going to talk with, and they know what we need to do. We hope we'll see you at the Learning Tree.
This is the Paid Podcast, a live edition of the show after Kansas beats Utah 71-59 at Allen Fieldhouse on Saturday. But enough about this sleepy game against Utah. Let's talk about Monday night when Kansas will be hosting presumably the number 1 team in Arizona. And right on cue, Derek has the stat queued up. I was actually going to talk about this, so thank you. Shout out to Derek in the chat. KU was never defeated, number one team at Allen Fieldhouse. It's crazy to hear that. I think it's happened 3 times, if I'm not mistaken, that they have played a number one ranked team at Allen Fieldhouse, and they have not won. So that's kind of an interesting stat. And I think it ties directly into this question that Clinton asked before the break, which, by the way, you like that transition, Kevin? I knew you would like that.
Yeah, I love that. I was very happy with that.
I knew you would like that transition. But yeah, Clinton before the break had asked, are y'all back on the Natty train? Almost. Yes. I would say I'm on the platform, right? You know, it's 19:20. I'm on the platform. The train has rolled into the station. I'm on the platform, and I am prepared to step onto the train as it's about to depart. That's where I'm at. I'm on the platform. I've got my suitcase and luggage with me. I'm about to get on. I'm about to take the step on. Now, the game against Arizona, I know people in the chat are telling me to get on. The game against Arizona will be one of the key determining factors of whether or not I am indeed stepping onto the train.
Get on the train, Nick. Get on the train.
Everyone wants me to get on
the train.
You're
going to let all these people down?
Everyone wants me to get on the train. But yes, obviously Monday night against Arizona. And then, I also had a message from Derek in the chat as well, talking about the fact that your next game is against Iowa State right after that, right? If you go 2-0 against Arizona at home and then Iowa State next Saturday, not only will I be on the train, I will be conducting the damn train, okay?
You'd have to push Dave out of his conductor seat to do that. And I don't think you're prepared to do that. I'm not going to lie.
I will be at the front of that train leading the charge if Kansas goes 2-0 over these next 2 games. Now, if they beat Arizona at home and then, you go to Iowa State, play a competitive game or lose or vice versa. Derek actually asked a question in the chat here. Would you rather beat number 1 at home or Iowa State in Ames? I think you'd have to say you'd rather beat Arizona at home, right? Yeah. I mean, defending home court, obviously winning road games in Big 12 play is huge, but defending home court, beating the number 1 team on Big Monday, like everything that game would mean for you, I think that have to be the pick. But
plus
it would be fun.
Plus, you're giving a loss to the team that's at the top of the Big 12 standings. I mean, you're pulling them closer to you. And so, that's just by virtue of, hey, this gives you a better chance to win the conference, you would take the Zona game, I would think.
Right. And, I know maybe for some people, winning the Big 12 regular season is not as important as maybe it used to be. If you're still of the mindset of wanting that to be a potential goal for Kansas, I think you have to choose the game against Arizona for what you mentioned, Kevin, which is you're sealing a game back for them. Which, by the way, look at Arizona's schedule just for a moment. Look at what they have to deal with over the next 2 weeks. They're going to lose a couple games, okay? I don't care how good they are. They're going to lose a couple games.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I think this is kind of their stretch, and Kansas kind of coming to the end of the stretch that we talked about before, where you have Arizona and then Iowa State, and that was that 5-game period where you said, oh, man, if you find a way to go 3-2, you are really good. Well, they're 3-0 through those games right now. And so if you win one, you get to 4-1. You win them both, you're at 5-0, and even Nick is hopping onto that train and going nuts. The number one AP thing does crack me up a little bit because I want to be contrarian and be like, well, KU's been number 1 AP team a lot, and KU has beaten itself at times when it was number 1 in the country. So, but in all seriousness, I'm interested to see this game too, because I've tweeted about this. I'm interested to see how Arizona fares in this too. And Arizona, I think if you look back at Arizona's schedule, they haven't played a lot of the top teams in the Big 12 yet. And so it's been a little while since the Wildcats have played one of the top teams in the Big 12. It's obviously going to be a huge atmosphere, tough game. And I wonder, I'm not saying it's disqualifying Nick, but Arizona can shoot the 3. They just don't. They don't take them. And one of the things when I was at 24/7 and then when I wrote for CBS, my main thing was, this is what makes a national championship basketball team. And I looked at all kinds of factors, and I've probably spent more time in that space than anybody in the continental U.S. There's maybe somebody in Finland that has me beat it. But the point is that 3-point rate was not something that I ever had circled as this is the reason somebody can't win the title. but we're also at a different spot in college basketball now where you have teams that launch a bunch of stuff. And so when you think back, the team that they remind me the most of is kind of that 14-15 Kentucky team that won 38 straight, but then lost to Wisconsin in the Final Four. In that game against Wisconsin, by the way, Nick, Kentucky made 3 of 5 3-pointers. So they shot 60% from 3 and lost, and they only took 5 of them. And that's something that I see in Arizona's range of outcomes. And I know we're talking about Monday night specifically, but generally speaking, I do think that Arizona is capable of losing a game, potentially even with their season on the line, where Arizona shoots something like 4 for 9, and it's like, hey, they shot the ball pretty well. They didn't take enough of them, and somebody else hits 10 threes, and that's just a really hard deficit to make up.
Kevin, Arizona has played 3 top 20 KenPom teams this season.
Yep.
3. 2 of them were in November. 2 of them were in November when they played Florida to start the season in the first game and when they played UConn on November 19th. The third one is BYU, who is sitting at 20th in KenPom, and that was the game they played last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago now, when they played at BYU, and they had that big lead and almost blew it. That's it. Those are the 3 top 20 KenPom teams they played. Now, they played Alabama, who's 22 in KenPom, beat them by 21. They played Auburn, who is actually 28 in KenPom right now, beat them also pretty handily. So, but besides BYU in conference play, as you mentioned, they haven't played any of the top teams in conference. Now, on the flip side of that, Kevin, after they play Oklahoma State today, these are their next 7 games. Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse. They get Texas Tech at home at Arizona. They get BYU again at home. Then they go play at Houston. And then they go play at Baylor. Then they have Kansas again at home. And they get Iowa State again at home. Think about that. Kansas, Texas Tech, BYU, Houston, Baylor, Kansas again, Iowa State. That's their next 7 games after Oklahoma State. I'm willing to bet they're going to lose at least 2 of those.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I think at least 2 is probably the operative word, because there's definitely a possibility that, hey, you split with KU, you lose to Houston, you lose to Iowa State. That's not out of the realm of possibility. And so I'm really interested with this being the start of Arizona's tough stretch. What does Monday look like? And I think, Arizona has 8 guys basically that they play about 40% of the minutes or more. That makes them a little bit deeper than KU, but not a ton. And so if El Marco is ready to go, that's going to be a key question too, I think, because as I think Derek mentioned, Arizona's guards are really, really good. And El Marco's a guy that even when he's not scoring, he's shown that he can give you defense. He can wall up on drives. He can do some positive things from that standpoint. If that next guy up is, hey, Jamari's having to play more minutes, he's not as good defensively. If it's Jaden Dawson or Cole Rosario, they need to show more defensively in that type of situation. But Arizona is basically an all-out attack at your rim, and they do a great job of moving the ball and generating layups. It's Tommy Lloyd comes from Gonzaga, and you think about when you play Gonzaga gets 35,000 shots at your rim, and that's going to be the tough thing too. Is can Flory, limit enough of those attempts, or is it something where, like today, Flory winds up sitting in the first half because of foul trouble, and then all of a sudden Arizona is still generating those shot attempts, and they're in a spot where they're able to convert more of those, and so this is going to be a really tough game. I think Kansas is probably going to have to shoot pretty well from outside in this one, and you need Darren Peterson to be Darren Peterson again.
Yeah, I think the 2 key matchups for me in this game are, one, not really a matchup, I guess, but more just what you mentioned with Flory Bidunga, where can Flory Bidunga stay out of foul trouble, and can he be that high-level rim protector that Kansas needs him to be? Because, as you said, Arizona, they're not going to shy away from attacking downhill and trying to get to the rim. So can Flory Bidunga be effective as a shot blocker again? And more importantly, probably in the first half, certainly, can he stay out of foul trouble against some of the bigs that Arizona has? And then the other part of that conversation, I think, is this is going to be a fantastic guard matchup, which is something that Derek pointed out in the chat. You've got Burries and oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Oh, Bradley.
By the way, I want to say real quick, Nick, Arizona is currently beating Oklahoma State by 27 in the second half. Arizona is 0 for 6 from 3. So like we said, they do not take a lot of 3-pointers. They can shoot 3-pointers. Like, that's in their bag. They're not a bad 3-point shooting team. They just don't do it. It's like they look at that and they're just like, I'm not going to go to that ice cream shop. I'll go to this ice cream shop.
Yeah. But the guard matchup, I think, with Burries and Bradley against Darren Peterson and Melvin Council will be very critical as well, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, Darren Peterson will have to have a Darren Peterson game, no question about it, for Kansas, I think, to have a real shot to win this one. And that'll be very important. Trey White will have to get into the mix. The other issue is Arizona can come at you in waves with big guys, with size inside. And so that just kind of goes back to reiterating the point of not only is it about Flory Bidunga, but also Bryson Tiller staying out of foul trouble in the first half, especially, to where, you're not having to go to a smaller lineup where Arizona can maybe even, take advantage of that even more. So it's certainly going to be a tough game for Kansas. I'm excited again because Arizona has, I don't think, really been tested to this level in a couple months now, to be honest with you. When you talk about the environment they're going to be walking into at Allen Fieldhouse, everyone was talking about how the BYU game last week was a top Allen Fieldhouse environment. Well, I'm expecting Monday night to be even better than that, truthfully, with the number one team in Arizona rolling into town. So I'm expecting it to be absolutely just bonkers in there in terms of the atmosphere and the crowd. So that'll obviously play in Kansas's favor. But yeah, it should be a fun game. I'm certainly excited for it. Do you have a prediction, Kevin? Do you think Kansas will get this win?
Yes, because I think, and the primary reason, quite frankly, is I think this is one of those Allen Fieldhouse games. I really do, where I think the crowd is going to be incredible. It's going to be one of those atmospheres on Big Monday with Bill Self at Allen Fieldhouse. And I realize people are going to be like, well, what about this specific matchup or whatever? And I think there's some other things too. I think Arizona does a nice job of generating free throws that, quite frankly, without flat out saying the refs are biased for Kansas, you don't always get those calls in Allen Fieldhouse. And I feel like it's like that across the Big 12, right? I mean, we talked after the Texas Tech game that Kansas didn't get the calls in Lubbock that Kansas was expecting or hoping to get in Lubbock, right? And
I am still mad about that Bryson Tiller play. It's been a week. It's been 5 days or whatever.
Bryson Tiller plays, the one where he got destroyed on the rebound, and there was the one where he dove to get the ball, and was not even going off the baseline, and some guy tackles him out of bounds, and it was out on Bryson Tiller. So yeah, I mean, that's all I'm saying is, I think when these two teams play in Tucson, you may wind up seeing, Arizona go to the free throw line 30 times in that game. In this one, if it's 10, if it's 15 or whatever, then that free throw margin is probably going to be a little bit closer than it would normally be. But I do think Kansas needs to shoot well from the outside. You need to see Darren Peterson be Darren Peterson again. And then you need to make things a little bit tougher on Arizona. They can't parade to the rim. They have to be challenged when they're getting their shots in there. And you want to play at a tempo that's comfortable for you, as opposed to comfortable for Arizona. And so all of those things are factors. But yeah, the Oklahoma State thing is fantastic. I mean, just being up 27 on somebody when you haven't made a 3-pointer all game, that tells you the type of team that Arizona is. They're really good.
In 2026, right? If this was 1974, you'd say, oh, okay, it's just another game of basketball. No, 2026. That's crazy.
Yeah, now people get pissed if you only make 6 threes in an entire game, and they've taken 6 threes and haven't made any of them, and they're smoking Oklahoma State.
Dave is calling a shot on the chat. 89-80, KU wins it. Yeah, I think it's, to me, I just try to pinch myself or remind myself about this. It is so hilarious that it is considered legitimate basketball analysis to say, I think this is just an Allen Fieldhouse game. Like that's just so hilarious to me. It's like, you know what? I just think this is just an Allen Field. Like what does that even mean? It's just Allen Fieldhouse. This is what
happens, man. It's Big Monday at Allen Fieldhouse. Bill Self. It's a win, you know.
Like, there's the stat where as Bill Self is he 39-0 on Big Monday? I think
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just so absurd to me that you can just sit here and be like, well, Arizona maybe is a little bit better than Kansas, but it's just an Allen Fieldhouse game, and then it's true, and then it's true.
It's like, yeah, it is.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Kansas as well because I think it's just an Allen Fieldhouse game. Quite frankly, I think they'll find a way to win it. I'm excited for it. We're gonna be live on Monday night after the game. It's an 8:00 tip-off for Kansas and Arizona, so probably around 10:15 p.m. on Monday night we'll be live. If you're too excited to go to bed, like sometimes I am after a Kansas win, come and hang out with us on our YouTube channel. Subscribe at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN. Join us for that one Monday night after KU in Arizona. By the way, one final question for you, Kevin. It's Super Bowl weekend. Seahawks, Patriots. What's your Super Bowl pick here?
I would have picked the Seahawks anyway, but I'm going to pick the Seahawks too because my co-host on Verbal Commitment, Ryan Wallace, is a huge Seahawks fan. I'd like to see him happy, and also, screw the Patriots, but also, like, just from a football standpoint, from an analysis standpoint, I think the Seahawks have the horses in this one. I think they get it done.
Drake May needs to be humbled. I think you can't let him get too big too quick. He needs to be humbled. So I like the Seahawks as well. Listen, Patriots fans, I'll just say this. I think Patriots fans have actually been not that bad recently because of the fact that the Chiefs fans, from a Chiefs fans perspective, they saw, they can relate to what Chiefs fans have dealt with the fact of people always claiming, oh, it's rigged for the Chiefs, whatever, all that crap. But that being said, I still don't want Patriots fans to experience happiness yet. You haven't been bad long enough.
I still have to sit next to Shreyas at press conferences.
Right. So you need a little bit more suffering, I think, before it's so acceptable for you to start winning Super Bowls again. So I'll go with the Seahawks as well. Derek says in the chat, just real quick before we wrap up the show, favorite prop bet.
Ooh.
I'm not huge into prop betting. There's always people always bet on the length of the national anthem, I guess. Yeah. So that's one. That we are a network sponsored by DraftKings. So I think I would be remiss if I didn't tell you, hey, if you're looking for a prop bet, check out the DraftKings Sportsbook, which is the official sportsbook of KCSN. So be on the lookout over there. But yeah, I don't know. I might, I'm not a huge dabbler. We'll see if I come up with something that piques my interest for it. But it's always a good time. Super Bowl is always fun. So. Oh, another one. Yeah. Derek he just reminded me. Yeah, another one is always, what color will the Gatorade be of the winning coach when they do the Gatorade bet? So, yeah, I don't know. Something to keep an eye on.
Blue Gatorade's elite.
Think so?
Blue Gatorade's terrific. Yeah.
Are you going to get mad if they waste the blue Gatorade by dumping it on the coach that won the Super Bowl?
No, that's fine. I mean,
okay. I didn't know if you were just so good that
I didn't know that Gatorade was a non-renewable resource or whatever. There probably is a group out there that's like, don't waste the Gatorade.
I don't know what they put in Gatorade, man.
I will tell you real quick, and we've gotten off topic, but my freshman year of football, somebody put a box of lemon heads into our water cooler, and I can tell you that was absolutely gross, and that water was pretty much undrinkable.
That's horrible. That's horrible. Shame on that person.
Blue Gatorade's terrific.
And with that, that'll do it for this edition of the Pay Heat Podcast, a live edition of the show. We will be live on Monday night. After. Oh, sorry. Dave was in the chat with some lemon lines. Anyways, we got to end the show. We got to end the show before we get too much farther off the rails. KU in Arizona Monday night. We're going to be live on our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN. Game's at 8 o'clock, so probably by about 10:15, 10:20, within 15 minutes after the conclusion of the game, you can expect us to be live on our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN. Subscribe on YouTube so that you'll know when we go live. Kansas Jayhawks KCSN. Thank you so much to everybody that joined us live today. Really appreciate it, Dave, Derek. You guys are the absolute best. Rock Chalk. And we'll talk to you on Monday night, hopefully after Kansas gets a win against Arizona. Until next time, enjoy the Super Bowl. Enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday. See ya.
You can't take Dave's conductor hat.
I can do what I want.